Here are 5 of the most iconic women's perfumes that have ever existed. And of course, when we are alluding to many of the classics, many of the greats, I think they all deserve their place within the industry. They have shaped and molded so many of the more contemporary releases on the market, fumbling over my words there. I suppose a lot of these old school perfumes really do have me in awe sometimes, especially when evaluating the trajectory that the industry has taken with regard to some of the more modern releases. And I think, we need to give them their deserved flowers, as it were. Anyway, I'm going to be talking to you about 5 of the most iconic women's perfumes that I have certainly come across, and I'll let you know what makes them so special, what they smell like, so on and so forth. But before I dive into the video, I do want to mention that if you're a fan of perfume-related content, reviews, top 10s, giveaways, so on and so forth, make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit that neighboring bell so you can be notified whenever I do upload future videos, and I upload on a daily basis. And of course, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, or you can wait until the end of the video to give me that thumbs up so that I can provide value first. Anyway, I appreciate your time. Let's go ahead and dive into the list. I would say try to sample a lot of these fragrances at ScentSplit. I doubt they're going to carry any of these, but ScentSplit is a fantastic service that you can use to sample fragrances, get a decant, try it on your skin, see how it works with your skin chemistry, and then you can commit to the purchase of a full-size bottle, which, by the way, ScentSplit also sells full-size bottles. This is not a sponsored post. I love giving them the plug, especially because I've been using them personally since 2014. The owner is a friend of mine. I think he's an amazing human being. And with that being said, I just want to go ahead and dive into the list. Now, the first perfume, and by the way, drop a comment down below and let me know what you think of any of these 5 perfumes. Have they been on your radar, or do you have any personal experience with any of these fragrances? If so, I would love to hear from you. Have you owned any of these at any point? The first fragrance is by Van Cleef and Arpels, and it's called First. Now, this is such an iconic fragrance. Did it come out in the 70s, 76 or something like that? And I really, really love this one. So this is a Narcissus-based fragrance, which, by the way, it's not a note that I get along with very well. Not a big fan of Narcissus or Freesia or Ylang Ylang. There are some floral ingredients like rose, tuberose, iris, jasmine, gardenia that I truly love. Narcissus, on the other hand, I'm not so sure about, but there's something about this fragrance that I think is very special. It has the oak moss and the dried down, very iconic DNA. And I just think it's so beautifully put together. And I know there's a lot of women who love this one. Nobody buys it anymore, unfortunately. And from what I'm being told, it's a bit hard to find. So I do have a bottle of it in my collection personally, and I'm treasuring this bottle because God knows when I'm going to be able to get my hands on a newer bottle. And I believe this is a bit of an older presentation. I do have to go on Check Cosmetic to see when it was manufactured, because there's a lot of websites and services that you can utilize to actually determine the date of manufacture of your fragrances. And I think I know a lot of people know that a lot of perfumes have been reformulated for various reasons: political reasons, scarcity of raw materials, IFRA regulations, cut costs. A lot of brands try to cut costs with the perfumes that they manufacture. And I know this one contained oak moss. And there are 2 chemicals in natural oak moss known as atronol and chloroatronol. And a few years back, it was determined that 2% of the EU population had adverse dermatological effects to atronol and chloroatronol. So they discontinued the use of natural oak moss, unfortunately. And ever since then, they've been utilizing an aroma molecule known as Evernil in place of oak moss, which still smells very good. But, it's one of the reasons why you smell perfumes that you used to wear a couple decades ago or more than that, and you say it doesn't quite smell the same. A lot of reformulations have taken place, and I really enjoy this one. It's a classic. The next one, we have Joy by Jean Patou. Now, this is a rose-based fragrance. There's a little jasmine in here as well. But we have a couple varieties of rose, and this stuff is quite strong and pungent. I know rose has a love or hate relationship with a lot of people out there, and that's totally understandable. I think people associate it with certain types of people, certain vibes, certain settings, whatever the case may be. I am a lover of rose. It is one of the floral ingredients that I truly do love. I don't wear much of it personally, even with regard to a lot of the masculine releases on the market. I know there's Cartier Declaration D'une Soir, which I think is so iconic, Moschino Toy Boy, which is a really nice modern masculine rose. And then, of course, you have some iconic greats within the industry like Portrait of a Lady by Frederic Malle, or even Lipstick Rose by Frederic Malle. So there's a lot of beautiful rose perfumes on the market. I think Joy by Jean Patou is a very iconic scent, and it is one of the best rose perfumes on the market, albeit, according to what a lot of people might think, it's a little dated. But I think there are certain perfumes that never go out of style. I think if it matches with your personality, the vibe that you're trying to convey, you should always wear what you want to wear, and don't let anybody infiltrate your opinion and tell you what you should be wearing, right? I love to cover all types of perfumes, masculine, feminine, modern, and contemporary, vintage and antique. It doesn't matter. I have a pretty diverse collection, and I'm fully immersed in this hobby at this point, and I love talking about perfumes of all different kinds. Now, the next one, I know this one has been quite iconic for many years. This is a Lily of the Valley jasmine perfume. It's quite powdery as well. And I think and it's so, weird, I suppose, because I'd received a comment on another social media platform when I reviewed this one, and there were actually a number of women that told me that this reminds them of a nursing home. And I know that's quite a pejorative thing to say. And I mean, my grandparents were both in a nursing home because before they passed, God rest their soul, the caretakers there were the only ones who were capable of providing them with the medical assistance that they needed at that time. My mother tried to be a caretaker to them for many, many years until, the whole 2020 thing happened. I'd rather not say it on camera, and a lot of the circumstances were beyond our control. And anyway, so I'm not even going to delve into that much longer, but I love the way that this smells. And I know this is how it's pronounced, guys. I know you have your own way of pronouncing the name. This is how it's actually pronounced. Anais, Anais by Cacharel. I think it's a beautiful fragrance. It's a very powdery lily and jasmine fragrance. It brings back a lot of memories for me as well. That clean white floral aesthetic that it possesses is actually quite beautiful, but I can see how the industry has taken compositions in a much different direction as of late. And there's just something about the smell. I can always detect it. I haven't really smelled it on anybody recently, not for a few months, I would say. But when I do, I know they're wearing Anais, Anais. And it's a beautiful, beautiful fragrance. Unfortunately, not one that I could recommend anymore, just because when I make recommendations on a pseudo fragrance consultation basis, because I don't get paid for any of that stuff, but I love, sharing my opinions with people and, making recommendations for them. Typically when they tell me, oh, I love Delina and I love Young Bougie Marshmallow and I love Don't Be Shy and this perfume and that perfume, obviously I'm not going to recommend Anais, Anais, but, if you want to explore some of the classics, it's definitely a fragrance that I think you should check out. The next perfume that we have on this list is Champagne by Yves Saint Laurent. And I have quite an old bottle here in my hand. And this is a very beautiful peach and cinnamon perfume. It's actually quite strong, quite long-lasting. I would say a bit aldehydic as well. At least that's the impression that I'm getting from this bottle right now. Aldehydes are not listed in the note breakdown, and typically that's what gives perfumes a very sparkling aura, almost like you're opening up a can of a carbonated beverage. And I know Chanel's No. 5 is probably the most iconic aldehyde perfume on the market. I don't think anything is ever going to change that. But this stuff is quite strong, and I'm a fan of it. Champagne, Ivresse, it's the same thing. Well, not really. I mean, reformulations have changed a lot of things, but Champagne is a beautiful perfume, one of the greats, quite iconic. And I suppose as an honorable mention, we can mention Chanel's No. 5. That's been around for a while. And I think with this type of a video, it warrants doing a part 2. So let me know in the comments if you would like me to do a part 2, perhaps. And I'm just looking over my shoulder here at one of my bookshelves trying to get an idea, because I do have a lot of other classic women's perfumes. If you want me to do a part 2, just let me know. But the perfume that I want to mention in the number 1 spot, this is my second bottle of it. I have smelled this so much over the past many, many years. The oak moss, the vanilla, the iris, the citrus. It's such an iconic fragrance. Also came out in the 1920s, like Chanel's number 5. And of course, considering the fact that this was probably worn by flappers, it's pretty cool. I love this fragrance. I love the way that it smells. I've always been a fan of the original. I have owned a few of the flankers, and I've always come back to this one. You know, nowadays you can find that at TJ Maxx and stuff, discounted. So, but at the same time, I think it's still worth the price tag, right? And I know there are certain women who absolutely swear by this fragrance. They've owned it for a very long time, and you know, it's the closest thing that they have gotten to a signature scent, I suppose, and it's totally understandable. And I love it. It is iconic. It will forever remain iconic, and it is none other than Guerlain's Shalimar. And look, composed by Jacques Guerlain back in the 1920s. And then, of course, I've had the privilege of meeting up with Thierry Wasser towards the beginning of this year, towards the middle of this year, I suppose. And I chatted with him about this fragrance at the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan, right next to Central Park. And then I also met up with Delphine Yelk, who is the perfumer behind the most recent flanker of this fragrance, which I own, and I smelled it in Dubai. I ended up getting a bottle eventually, and I plan on doing a dedicated review on that fragrance as well, because I think it's absolutely beautiful. And I would imagine it must have been somewhat of a Herculean task to take the essence of the original Shalimar, not deviate from it too strongly, and yet still manage to pull off something that smells like a modern version of one of the most iconic perfumes in the world, Shalimar by Guerlain. It's a beautiful fragrance, and I sincerely hope that even as a modern woman, presumably somebody younger than me, I hope you still have the opportunity to try this one, especially if you have not tried Guerlain's Shalimar. I think it's one of the greats. It's such an iconic fragrance, and it deserves all of the accolades that it has received throughout the past 100 years. Thank you for watching. I love you all. If you enjoyed this video, or if you took anything of value from today's episode, I would really appreciate it if you would consider supporting the channel by clicking subscribe, hitting the bell, and also giving this video a thumbs up for the algorithm. Thanks again for watching. I love you all, and we'll see you tomorrow with a brand new episode.